Welcome to IO Extended UK and Ireland. I'm Hemel from GDG Edinburgh, and I'll be helping to host tonight's event. So IO Extended is organized by Google developer groups, and you might wonder, you might not be familiar with Google developer groups. So we've got a short video here just to give an idea of what these GDGs, as they're called, just an idea of what they are.
Technology brings us closer together, even when we're far apart. Google developer groups host meetup events for local technologists to connect, learn, and grow with others in their area.
The project I'm mostly proud of would be teaching Introduction to Programming to 7 girls in my hometown.
In the GDG, I used to attend various workshops, like it was on Firebase, Android, Cloud. Everyone is learning from someone else.
We started to meet twice a week for a long time, learning Google Cloud. Amazing experience.
After joining Accenture as a software engineer, I started to share my journey in Medium, podcasts, and talks at online bootcamps.
My talk inspired one of community members a lot. So I mentored him to start his latter path. And 1 year later, at the same conference, he was giving a talk at the same stage.
One member of our community moved from being a DJ at our event to developing the first leading bank in the country.
When we do events that impact a lot of people, we are bringing opportunity to our region. So a lot of investors, a lot of startups, they will start to see opportunities here.
Technology.
So hopefully that's giving you a rough overview of the Google developer groups. So I mean, basically they're local or online, local online or in-person meetups that foster development communities. And GDGs are open to anyone interested in tech, whether you're a beginner or an experienced developer. And GDGs, they're supported by Google, but they're actually run by volunteers. So now you might wonder, what is IO Extended? So basically, IO Extended, it's you have the main Google I/O event every year, and the IO Extended events are organized by the GDGs just as a follow-up and to provide some community content. And here's some figures just regarding the number of GDGs active in the UK and Ireland just now. So with IO Extended, there's 9 tracks happening over 3 nights. This is the second night we're on. And if you need to catch a talk on a different track, you can always shift to the other broadcasts on the YouTube channel where you're currently watching this broadcast. And just to check you're on the right track, we're currently tonight we're going to be talking about AR and VR. So a few housekeeping notes. First of all, just going to introduce ourselves. There's Pranav, who unfortunately can't be with us tonight, but he's put in a huge amount of effort in preparing for this event, and Pranav is an electronic engineering student at the University of Southampton. We've also got Federico here. You want to say hi, Federico?
Hi, Emal. Hi, I'm Federico, and I will co-host this evening with Hemal and the speaker, let's say, this session about AR, VR. And I work as a software engineer, and I'm based in Athlone, and I support the Google developer group of Athlone.
Cool. And what field are you working in, Federico?
Mainly, I work on web and cloud, and that's my main expertise. But I'm interested in any topics, let's say, that turns around technology like AR, VR, AI, ML, anything that turns around. It's of great interest.
Cool, great. Thanks, Federico. As for myself, yeah, I'm an organizer at GDG Edinburgh. I'm also a freelance AR, VR Unity developer. So I work on a number of platforms, including like Magic Leap, HTC Vive, and Google Daydream. And right now, I'm currently developing a HoloLens 2 application for the military. And you can see on the slide, yeah, we've got all our kind of LinkedIn profiles if you're interested in finding out more about us or connecting. Okay, so there's a code of conduct that applies to all GDG events, and you can read that code of conduct at the link displayed here. So, so in terms of what we're going to be discussing tonight, there's a list here of the various AR and VR talks. So it's going to be yeah, about half an hour talk. Hopefully, we'll have some time for questions at the end of each talk. And if you're able to share these talks on social media, that'd be great. We've got the hashtag there, Google I/O Extended UKI. So shortly we're going to move on to our first speaker, Jai. So he's going to be starting at 6:15. So we're just going to hang on here till 6:15. So we're starting in, let's see, just over, yeah. If I make it 8 minutes, is that right, Federico? I've got my timing right.
Yeah. It's we are a bit ahead of the schedule.
Cool. Maybe I was speaking too fast.
That's totally fine. And yeah, in any case, AR VR is a topic that is gaining a lot of let's say popularity in the last I'd say decade or 5 years. But yeah, Jay will give us a great introduction.
Yeah, I mean, VR has like been around for like decades. I remember like when I was a kid, going to see some this kind of VR arcade. Had a big, massive, clunky headset. You had to like, I think you had to kind of straps kind of backpack on, and you kind of wired up to the ceiling. And it was a really slow response. You got almost like sick watching it, but it kind of worked. I guess technology's been around for years and years, but or decades even. But I guess it's only recently it's becoming I guess, mass market, and I guess the performance and frame rates are kind of are such that people can use it now without getting sick.
Yeah, definitely. Technology is moving so fast in these fields that really, yeah, the changes has been massive since the very beginning up to now. Yeah.
So was it interested you was it interested you in VR, about VR AR? Have you had a chance to play with any of the devices? Or?
Yeah, a few years ago, but not much as of now. I played with a Google HoloLens, and in the past, yeah, and I remember it was pretty big, nice, but it gives you really a good feeling of let's say being submerged in let's say in a virtual reality. It's really nice, yeah.
Sure. Yeah. What do you think of HoloLens? I guess it was the first HoloLens, was it?
Yes. It was the first, yes.
Yeah, I remember when I tried the first one. Yeah, I found the actual kind of the field of view is like a really kind of narrow kind of window you're looking out of. But HoloLens 2, yeah, is a big improvement on that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so I think Federico will just maybe just pause for like a few minutes there, and we'll fire up again in 5 minutes at 6:15.
Yes.
Cool. Hi, just coming back online since I've noticed I've got some comments coming in. So like since as we've got a few minutes, it's a good time to look at some of those comments and questions. So I've got one in from Stephen asking about VR AR projects in education. For myself, there's one project I worked on was it's basically a VR language learning application. And the idea was, the kind of concept was that they say the best way to learn a language is to actually visit that country and immerse yourself in the local culture. So we're trying to kind of replicate that in VR. So for example, like initially we were targeting Spanish. So this application, when you put your headset on, you're basically in a Spanish market, and you see like fruit stalls, vegetable stalls, people walking around, dogs barking, cars driving past. Try to put in quite an immersive situation, and then you were given like a shopping list, saying like 3 apples, 2 bananas, 5 oranges, and the idea was that you had to go up to the market stalls and order these things, these items in Spanish, and then when you did, the items would appear in your basket. So yeah, that was a real fun project to work on. It's for a startup company. Unfortunately, we never got any funding to take it further, so it's kind of it's pretty much on hold. But yeah, it was quite a fascinating project to work on. And what was interesting is when we showed it to when we showed it to like adults, we had to kind of guide them through if it was running on Google Daydream, and we had to guide them through how to use a controller, how to make your way around the application. And once they got a hang of it, yeah, they really enjoyed it. And then we tried the same thing. The application was actually aimed at primary school children, and we found that when we gave it to kids, they would immediately just take it before we had a chance to explain it to them. They would go bang, 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 fire their way through the application and figure it all out for themselves like really quickly. So that was quite interesting. And the nice thing about it was they kind of play through the one level we had, and afterwards you'd ask them like, what's word for apples in Spanish, and say, oh, mañanas. So they kind of like been kind of learning these words without kind of almost without realizing it, which is I think that's a great application of VR in terms of education to first have like a real fun and immersive experience, and also to learn things without realizing that you're being taught something. So anyway, hope I've answered your question, Stephen. And when you get the other speakers in, hopefully we'll have time to ask them as well about their if they have any experiences of educational projects. Okay, so I think we're starting in about 1 minute. Hopefully we'll start our next talk. Right, okay, it's 6:15 and we're ready to have our first speaker, Jai Campbell. So I think Jai is going to cover his journey as an Android developer, backgrounds on AR core, game design, can we share some industry tips, and he's also going to cover, as you can see, building a game using the AR core and Google Cloud APIs. So yeah, welcome, Jai. And I'm told that you used to be a semi-professional basketball player. Is that correct?
Indeed. Back in my early days.
Wow. So who did you play for?
I used to play for Leeds, and I had trials for England at one point as well when I was in high school.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Impressive stuff.
Thank you.
Cool. But anyway, okay, I'll let you take it away, Jai.
Sure, let me get ready to share my screen. Let me know when you can see, and then I can start. Are we good? Brilliant. Okay, thank you. Great. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today, IO Extended. Welcome to the AR and VR track. As just previously mentioned, I'm going to be giving a discussing on building a game using AR Core and Google Cloud APIs. So let's move swiftly along. A little bit about me. My name is Jai Campbell. I'm a senior architect at Wipro Digital. I run a community similar to GDG called London SRE. I run this with another engineer called Nishay Goyal. It's been running for almost 2 years now. Similar to GDG, it's an open community, open for all, especially those wanting to get involved in site reliability engineering. And here's a couple of pictures that kind of gives you an illustration of the kind of community events that we run in person. We run cloud study jams, and we also run one-to-one sessions, and we invite hosts to speak about cloud and technologies within the GCP ecosystem. Okay, so again, a little bit about me. I'm a software engineer with 20 years experience, covering lots of Google Cloud technologies and technologies outside Google Cloud ecosystem in Cloud Native. And outside of that, I enjoy playing games, playing sports, and spending time with friends and family. Okay, here's a quick link to the community, meetup.com, London SRE group. Please join and join one of our sessions if you'd like to find out more about SRE. So today's discussion, motivation, why I'm motivated to start using AR Core. I'll give you a bit of background about myself in gaming and the technologies around it, a background about AR Core, the fundamental concepts that make AR work, a bit of an insight into the game that I'm building, some insights into the research that I've done around AR Core and the APIs and all the different integration and technologies around it, some insights into YouTube, specifically on how you can tie YouTube into AR, and then how you can tie the game into the GCP ecosystem to actually manage the compute. And then a little bit of information about the prototyping and development that I've been doing with all these different tools. And then at the very end, I'll share some lessons learned and some tips that for yourselves if you ever think about starting Android development, AR development, or just game development in general. Okay, so the motivation. The motivation started when I was a young boy playing games. Pokemon was a bit beyond my time, but I did have some fun with Pokemon Go, and I have a lot of respect for Niantic for the game that they developed on Android and iOS. Another part to this is Envoy. Envoy was a big part of making the game work at the back end in terms of providing all the networking, the communication, because you had millions of players globally trying to find these Pokemon and catch them. You know, got to catch them all. In order to do that, you had to have a system that was capable of managing that kind of traffic. Okay, so onto AR. I would say in 2014, I was working for an arts center. The pointer does, I can't tell if the pointer works here, but it was for Carsten Holler. He was a Belgian artist, and basically these are some of the exhibits. It was a really cool, interesting show. If we look in the bottom left-hand corner, you can see a young man, a young child, and he's playing on a VR device. This is a, got the name now. we will move back to the name of the device. Oh, you can see the mouse pointer. Brilliant. Thank you. I was part of this project where we was using AR, and virtual reality. We had 15 customized units in a large hall where each person could sit in and have their own field of view, and they would be walking through a forest, and they had a button on the side where they could change perspectives. Also, as part of this installation, there was a slide going from a roof. It was a really interesting and engaging project to be a part of, and this was what started to get me involved in VR and AR, both in a gaming aspect and, more importantly, in terms of development and working with the hardware and the software that makes these experiences possible. It was the Oculus Rift DK1 unit. Can't believe I forgot that. It's my first real hardware device for VR. I love that device. Okay, in terms of GCP and Google Cloud, I've been fortunate to use this device. This is called Magic Leap. This is different from AR and VR, where it's more a mixture of both. It combines virtual reality and artificial reality to kind of give you a mixed reality view. And it's, if you can have a look at the example here, this is kind of like an industrial setting where it gives the user the advantage to play around with hardware in an open space and not actually have to spend the money on the actual physical device. And again, you could imagine a device like this being used in a medical environment. For example, doctors practicing surgery on patients. I have a video here, but my connection is a bit slow today, so I won't share this. But if you would like to see, I will share this after my session. Okay, let's move across. So, Half-Life Alyx. Why have I decided to show this? This is a virtual reality game, but if I can quickly show you the clip, if it will start, it may give you some insights. If not, we may have to move. Here we go. It's going to give you an indication of how VR and AR can work. So to kind of give you an idea what just happened then, he's wearing a VR headset, he's looking in a room at a whiteboard, and his hand is in the game world. And as he's looking towards the whiteboard, which is in virtual reality, he's able to manipulate the objects in real time in virtual reality, which is really cool, and is one of the motivations why I'm looking at AR, because I want to have that real world interaction where you're not having to spend lots on device, but you still get that really cool interactivity. Here's a picture of me with Google Daydream. So for anybody that's interested to get into AR development and you don't have a lot of money to spend on a physical device, you can pick one of these up, a Google Daydream. They're very cheap, they're very lightweight. And simply all you do, you put your headset inside, download some applications or create the applications yourself preferably, and you've got an easy way to experience AR in your home or share it with your friends and family. So here's a quick cool Easter egg. Here's me at GCP. I wanted to show you that because I wanted to show you another Easter egg. It's from the Doctor Who series. This is going to be cool if the video works. So let's just pray that this works now. Have a look. Okay. Again, my internet connection isn't that great, but essentially I've jumped onto Google Maps. I've gone to the Google headquarters, and I'm going to come back to London, England. So here we go. We're going to go back to Earl's Court, and we'll find the phone box, the famous TARDIS from the Doctor Who series. If I pop Ping Mang down, and here we are on Google Maps. And this is a really cool Easter egg. There's a few more like this if you have a look at Google Maps. And I'm going to quickly jump because it takes me a bit of time to actually find the point. I think this is the magic button. There we go. From Google Maps, we jump into the TARDIS. And you can have a walk around, have a feel around. You can't actually press on the buttons, but maybe in the future, there'll be an option, or this might be upgraded, where you can actually interact with some of these features inside the TARDIS. But I thought that was really cool. And if you look at the kind of tricks that you can do with Google Maps like this, if you're building a game, which I'm intending to do, these are the kind of features that I'm trying to integrate into the design. Okay, pause this. So AR main concepts. Been talking a lot about games and about my inspirations. Let's talk about what makes AR Core work. So a big part of AR is motion tracking. So as your phone moves through the world, AR Core uses a process called simultaneous localization and mapping, or SLAM, and it needs to understand where the phone is relative to the world around it. So like the lady in the picture, she's positioning her phone and the phone's orientation itself to get a sense of an idea where it is, using all the accelerometers in the device. Environmental understanding. This is really important because AR Core is constantly improving its understanding of the real world environment by detecting feature points and planes. So feature points and planes are things like tables, flat surfaces, like floors, walls. Again, this is to allow the device and any applications or games that you create to have an orientation and understand where you are and where the phone is in relation to the real world. We have light estimation. This is one of my favorite aspects of AR Core. So AR Core can detect information about the lighting of its environment and provide you with the average intensity and color correction of a given camera image. So what this basically does, as you can see in the image, if you place an artificial image inside your room, the software will detect the lighting in the real room and adjust the image quality of the actual artifact that you're placing so it looks like it's actually taking the light from the room and it casts real shadows as if it was actually physically in the room. It's a really cool feature, and it makes objects appear like they're more real than they naturally would be. Anchors and trackables. Anchors and trackables are really important because these are what give the phone and the applications, again, a fixed orientation points, and kind of how a bit more of the official terminology is poses can change as AR Core improves its understanding of its own position and its environment. When you want to place a virtual object, you need to define an anchor to ensure that AR tracks the object's position over time. So an example of this is if you had, say, like a beach ball, and you had your AR device pointing at the floor, and you place the ball on the floor, the anchor point will enable you to walk around the ball and see different angles of the ball and different surfaces of the actual physical, the virtual object in the real world. And then MISC. Oh, this is the same one. I do apologize. So my game idea, we've talked a little bit about the concepts. One thing that I would like to quickly stop on before I go into my game idea is that when we're talking about devices, one of the limitations when building with mobile phones in mind is the massive ecosystem that there are and the different types of phones. So when you're designing your game, you have to be very cautious that when you're designing it, that it's going to be accessible from a wide range of devices. So that's one thing that I keep in mind when I'm thinking about developing, and I would advise you to do so the same. So my game idea. Ingress. If you're familiar with mobile games, I'm sure you're familiar with the term clones, where somebody has a look at another game and says, that's a cool idea. I'd like to try that, but maybe make it better. And that's kind of what I'm going to do with my game. So Ingress is a game. It's quite popular. It's made by Niantic, the same developers that made Pokemon Go. And basically, Ingress uses the mobile device's GPS. So it uses your phone to locate itself, but there's also virtual objects in the world, like you can see on the right. And what they've done, they've created like a virtual world, and they've built like portals, but the portals are using famous elements and historical sites such as Big Ben will be like a really significant place in the game world, which you can go to in the real world, put your phone in front of it, and it will change into a portal. And then you get to interact with other users in the community. It's really engaging, and it takes a lot of exercise because it has you moving around. But there's lots of things for you to actually think about in this game world because there's lots of mysteries for you to uncover. I highly advise checking this out. It's available for iOS and for Android. My game will be similar to this in terms of it will have its own lore, its own history. There's going to be a lot of GPS, but the mysteries that I'm going to form are going to be more technical, and I'm still kind of getting to the end point in terms of what the real end goals be. But at the moment, in terms of the shape and the structure, it's going to be very similar as this in terms of using GPS, have some form of interaction with YouTube, and then the story elements will form from the community. So researching AR Core. Another video, see if this plays. Oh, cool. Let's have a quick watch and give you an idea of what AR Core is all about. Awesome. As you can see, there's lots of different use cases for AR Core. It's really what your imagination kind of can come up with in terms of what you can build. So then you've been able to kind of visualize some of what you can actually do with AR Core. Let's have a look at what you need to look at in the background in terms of developing these cool solutions. So there's a variation of different development kits and integrations that you can use. As we was just discussing before, when you first start to develop, you need to think about what environment and what tooling languages are you comfortable with. So for me, I'm going to be using Android. And we was just discussing before we came live about the Unity. And I like Unity, but in preference to Unity, I'm more of a fan of Unreal, and it's a development engine that I've got more experience with using. Again, iOS integration is available, which is very important because you don't want to segregate your user base. If you're going to be developing a game and releasing it to the public or to your users in general, you have to think at the very early start, what platforms are you going to be developing for? Throughout this talk, I'll be showing you some ways how you can kind of alleviate some of the issues with this, thanks to advances in AR development and some of the tools that are available for you. I'll just take a quick drink, sorry. Okay. Google Maps. As we were just discussing about Ingress earlier, Google Maps have introduced a really cool tool called Live View. Essentially, if you have a compatible device, one of the new Android devices, or with one of the newest software updates, essentially what you can do is you can hold up your phone to the real world, orientate it by just moving it around to get the accelerometers and so forth, understanding where it is. And then basically what will happen, you'll have an overlay of the world around you. I'm planning to integrate this into my game world and leverage these APIs to get the features that we saw in Ingress, again, so that when my game players are navigating the world, I can use these APIs to overlay artifacts that I would like to have rather than just general public information. I could put an image of maybe like a space station where the Eiffel Tower is and have that engaged in my game world. One toolkit that's going to help me, a development kit that's going to help me, recently just shown at IO Extended was the Android Game Development Kit. It's a full range of tools and libraries which help you develop, optimize, launch, and iterate higher Android games. This is going to be pivotal to help me accelerate the development. I'm quite new to Android development in general, so any blueprints or any assistance that I can have where I don't have to start from the very beginning is going to be vital to kickstart my game. And again, here you can see the development kit integrates with Android Studio and Visual Studio as well, where it gives you extensibility on existing libraries, which is pivotal as well. If you've ever done any work with making music or editing videos, any kind of multimedia work, these kind of development packages really assist you and they're vital to get going. So I'm really happy that this has been released. A big part of making a game is 3D assets. I'm not the greatest at creating 3D models. And in terms of sourcing free assets to help, again, to kind of make my project be a bit quicker, I'm going to use some of the free assets from the Unity Asset Store. It's a really cool store for getting free assets, especially for just starting off, where you can get a 3D model such as this fox, for example, and then you can build on top of that and start to possibly work with some animation. Okay, this is what I'm really excited about, the YouTube part. Let's Play. So for anybody that isn't in the gaming world, a Let's Play is a video documenting the playthrough of a video game, usually including commentary or a camera view of the gamer's face. So very similar to this presentation, whereas instead of seeing slides about AR and VR, you'd see the game that I'm playing, and you'd be able to have tips and tricks, see some tips and tricks, and actually communicate with the users that are actually watching as well. It's really cool. Stadia and YouTube integration is why I'm interested in the Let's Play, because with the new Stadia and YouTube integration, you get a type of YouTube integration that will allow you to begin playing a game while you're watching a game about it. So again, imagine you're watching a YouTube video, you're watching your favorite YouTuber, they're playing a game, they get to a point in the game that you can never reach, you could just click a button and start at that point in time. Crowd play, exactly again, you can watch a game being played, click the crowd play button and jump in with the creators that you're watching. And share state, it lets streamers or developers, again a developer such as myself or you if you're about to start developing your games, share playable scenarios with Stadia users. So again, you could create a game world, it could be AR, VR, integrated with YouTube in a video in such a way where you can have a community, shape the game world and make it interactive, and then possibly pause that and make it fork into different stories within the actual game itself. There's some really cool things that you can do with that, and there's an example here that I will show you. So, Hitman 3, a game which has just been released for VR on the PlayStation. I think it is available on Stadia as well, which is why we're going to talk about it right here. Play this custom game state. So what Eidos Interactive have done, and this is something that I'm planning to do as well, is in the game that I'm developing in AR, rather than the traditional PlayStation or home console, I'll develop the game and then I'll plan to release it on Stadia and have my users integrate with the game world in real time and make changes on the fly while they're using their Android devices. I'm going to use what the work that Aeon Interactive have done to kind of learn from how they actually got it to work, because I think they're the first developer, or one of the first developers, to actually use these features. And here's an example of what it looks like. They're using a controller with their phone. My game will not use a controller, it will use the phone itself as the hardware device, and then the game world will be overlaid in terms of on top of the real world. Here's an example of how you can have AR without having an expensive device. So to kind of combat the ecosystem and the fragmentation of users, one possibility that I was looking at was using Webxr. And basically what that allows you to do is to have your AR being rendered in the cloud, and then a lot of the AR is rendered in the cloud, with some of it happening on the device. One limitation of this, again, is that the device itself has to have AR services and be AR compatible. So it doesn't quite completely negate the fact that you need a compatible device, but it's getting there to the point where a lot of those features can be offloaded into the cloud, and then the device, it will not be a question in terms of who can use the actual game. So prototyping and development. What have I been doing so far? As I've discussed, I've been looking at Google Maps and the APIs and Google Stadia. In terms of the real development against the APIs, I've been using the Webex Art Base Api. And basically what this allows you to do is create a very simple application on your phone. You could call it a game if you like. And you put sunflowers, you create sunflowers and you can change the assets. I've been pulling in assets from the Unity store, and you can overlay these. The example here is on some grass, but you can do this in your living room, and it gives you an idea of how to build your first augmented reality application. It takes about 2 hours to get, 2 hours to get a full understanding used in this example, and I'm quite happy to share my experience after to give you more direct information on this, because this is really cool. And this is where I've been spending a lot of my time to actually get to understand all the sensors in the device and how AR takes on shadows within the real world. On the development side, GitHub. GitHub has been really important for me because with all the development and coding, I've had somewhere to actually store my code, and Git has been a natural source repository. On top of that, GitHub Unreal, there's actually ways that you can use GitHub to, we can use Git for Unreal Engine 4, but you can also use Git for, I've lost my train of thought, sorry. You can also use Git for AR Core as well. And so you can use a GitOps methodology when you're creating your game, and that's something which I've been doing. Another reason why I've been choosing Git is because it's just me at the moment that's creating the experience. In the future, I hope to share the source code that I've been developing and allow other developers to work with me on my code. So Git is a natural choice to invite other developers and engineers to start having a look at what's there. Emulation. So quickly going back to the devices. Geniemotion is a really cool tool. You have the emulation capabilities in the Android toolkits. However, for me, I've known about Geniemotion since 2014, so it's a framework and a tool that I'm really comfortable with. Of course, for yourself, there's going to be different tools that you like, but this is a really cool tool. It gives you Android as a service, and you have all the capabilities that you can imagine, such as performance, capability of choice, and it also, as we were just discussing before, it allows for continuous integration. So utilizing GitHub, Geniemotion, I can run deployments and then do incremental updates to my games using GitOps. And it also supports Terraform, which is really cool as well. So lessons learned. What lessons have I learned through my through my journey so far? It's much easier to create games on Windows devices. And what does that mean? It means that the development kits that are available and all the extensions and all the plugins, at this point in time, a lot of the tools that are out there, the majority of them are devised for x86 Windows systems. So when developing your game, I've had to go back to having a Windows laptop. Some of the work I can do on my Mac, but for the majority of the work, I've had to use a Windows device. So that's something to take into consideration. And then lastly, game design considerations in general. And I came to find out about these pretty late in the game because I was so excited about building a game. As a game developer generally would do, you just get straight to coding and then start to think about some of these things later on. But hopefully you will look at this and think about these first. So let's quickly walk through before the end of my presentation. So number 10, design with users in mind. When I think about my game, I think it might end up like a tech demo with a couple of cool features, but hopefully it will be an exciting game. And taking these tips, I can shape the experience so that it will be focused with users in mind. Number 9, find your game's hook. So a game's hook is going to be what keeps users and your gamers coming back to play your game. What makes it exciting for them? What gets the adrenaline running? Hear that? Sounds like game design. See, we're already talking about making some ideas for making games exciting. Try for viral. Think about Angry Birds. Games like this, they can be pretty simple on the outset, but again, the game's hook gets everybody excited. Pokemon Go, that went viral. It doesn't have to be the most extravagant game. As long as it's exciting and fun and accessible, users will pick it up and word of mouth will make people hear about it. And again, hyper focus on fun. If a game's fun, then everybody will likely want to pick it up. Keep controls intuitive. In an AR game, when you're using a device, when you're manipulating the virtual world with the real world, the controls have to be intuitive so that it's not so hard. You would think it's easy because it's just touch, but there's a lot of design considerations, and especially with battery life on handsets. AI is very battery intensive and compute intensive, so you have to take that into consideration in terms of the controls. Balance the gameplay. Again, that's self-explanatory. The gameplay needs to be fun. It doesn't need to be too hard, neither too easy. It needs to get people engaged, and make your game stand out. Early on, I was talking about game cloning. Sometimes cloning can be quite cool, and it shows a bit of respect to the other developers. But on the other hand, have a new idea, have some innovation, make your game stand out, and then get organized. As you can see in my list, there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. One cool point, or one important point, is to have a repo where you're keeping all your code and all your artifacts, so everything is in one place. And then market your game. If you have an alpha or a very early version of your game, don't be afraid to open it up to a closed group of users and get some feedback, maybe version 1, version 2, have users have a go, and then release it as a free version. Or maybe just, like I said in the first place, just have a few users have a go. Once you've had the feedback, don't be afraid to release your game, get the feedback, and then maybe make a version 2 or have another go at something slightly different. But once you've got the game out there, use that experience for your next development. And that is a wrap for me. If we have any questions with the time that we have left over, or we might have to leave that till the end of the session. I hope the information there was useful, and I hope to speak to you in the upcoming months when I have the first prototype of my game to show you, and I can show you the pipeline that makes it all come together. Thank you for joining today.
That's I really enjoyed that, Jay. That was a great overview of AR and VR development. I was really impressed with how much you managed to cover in just about half an hour. It's quite a broad range of experience you've got there.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm looking forward to sharing my game in the future.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you. Thanks, Emil.
Okay, so just going to introduce our next speaker, Tom Fisk. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly.
You did,
so Tom's
indeed.
Great. So I believe, Tom, that you're going to be talking about the state of the XR industry. And also, I understand that you helped to organize the Quidditch World Cup in 2018. Is that correct?
That's correct. And believe you me, that's a very, very long story. Let's put it like that.
Okay. And for folk who don't know, what exactly is Quidditch?
It's a sport which was made up by an author called J.K. Rowling in the Harry Potter books, but then it kind of came to real life. So it was also played in real life too. So people run around with poles between their legs, adding some complexity to the sport. And it's played all around the world, including in America, Peru, UK, Canada, France. Yeah. Wow. You could find your own local team if you so wish. And they have not appeared in the Olympics this year, rather unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Great. Wow. It's amazing what you learn in the most unexpected of places. Right.
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks, Tom. I'll let you take away. Are you able to share your screen now?
Yes. I believe if I just click this, then it should appear now, shouldn't it? Let's see. Yeah, it does. We got the infinite. Excellent. What I'll do is I'll start the presentation then.
Great. Okay.
There we go.
Tom.
No worries. Thank you so much for introducing me. So welcome everyone to the XR landscape, where we're exploring the kind of state of XR. My name is Tom Fisk. I'm currently streaming in from the office where I work in my day job. I don't normally work in an area like this. My room is a lot more untidy, but here I am. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to go through briefly who I am. I started a blog called Virtual Perceptions in 2015 because I saw the potential of virtual augmented reality and I thought, that seems quite cool. So I decided to double down on it. Then I transitioned to a newsletter in 2020, and that became the main way in which I explored, via essays principally, what's happening in the industry. Because it's very quick and it's rapidly changing. There are some big players that kind of monopolize the share of voice, but there's a lot of smaller companies that are doing some really cool, innovative items in the area as well. And I wanted to keep track of that. So the newsletter is a very niche one, just kind of specializing in these companies, what they're doing, what the kind of the trends are bubbling up, and everyone should be kind of taking notice of. Published a book about it last year, got #1 on the VR category on Amazon, and my principal background's actually in PR and communications. So I actually work in an agency, my day job, and this is kind of my hobby, which I've doubled down into, and it's taking up a lot of my personal time. And I really enjoy it, and I absolutely love doing what I'm doing. So the point of the presentation is I just kind of want to work out what XR is going to go. I'm not going to be taking any bets because I'm probably going to be wrong, like everyone else in the space, because again, it's going quite quickly, but there are some kind of, if you follow where the money is going and charting the course where businesses are naturally growing, then you could kind of see where the footsteps are going down and seeing where the steps can be taken. So this is a particular image, and I really like this one. So chocolatiers in the 1900s in Germany were trying to work out what the future is going to be like. So they handed out these postcards and they gave little visions of what they thought the year 2000 was going to look like. Now, in this case, they were showing trains which are pulling along these houses, which are going through along the central city. And I love this because the prism of how you predict the future is based on your current circumstances. And the same is true when considering predicting the future as well, because naturally, when people think of the metaverse as an example, they see it as a kind of wider social network, because we currently have Facebook and WhatsApp and Instagram and Snapchat. When the future vision of the metaverse may look completely different from that, because it's a paradigm shift, and we'll be exploring topics which we're not really exploring nowadays. The same happened with the Germans in the 1900s. They only really knew about the future from the prism of the technology they had at that time, which is why they're completely wrong in this case. But it's something you have to bear in mind when people are trying to consider what's been happening in the state of XR and the path that will be taking. So this presentation is going to go through augmented reality in retail, packaging, and gaming. I'll be light on gaming because we had Jai just now who did an excellent talk on that aspect, and I feel like I can't really build from that. Virtual reality and collaboration training in gaming, again, because it is kind of the areas where a lot of companies are focusing into, and the metaverse, which I had to update this slide earlier today because it just keeps changing in the moment, because you may have seen the announcements happening with Facebook as well. So augmented reality. The two kind of trends which I'm bearing in mind are QR codes, because a lot more people are using QR codes more commonly, principally because they have to. When they go into shops or when they go into restaurants, they have to do a quick little scan just to check in, and then boom, they are able to keep track of what they're doing. And brands are noticing that consumers are more likely to do it now. Not to say they'll do it all the time, but they're more likely to do a quick little scan to keep track. And they're implementing QR codes more frequently to keep track of it. The same happened in London, actually, because in Piccadilly Circus, there's a campaign happening where on the actual Piccadilly lights, you can scan a massive QR code there, and you see an augmented reality activation play out, which is very cool. And the other trends, as Jai actually mentioned, was Webxr. It is a very good way of increasing access, because you're effectively downloading and running an experience via the web browser, which makes it a lot easier to reach more people with your experiences. And a lot of companies are taking advantage of that by giving Webxr variations of products which can just be delivered via your mobile phone. Now, the con, has been explored, is it's nowhere near as powerful, because it's not directly using all of the computing power of your mobile device. But if it's good enough, then it's good enough. And then you can do some pretty nifty things with it too. Then you've got Aeon Retail, which is just another example where there's a lot of money being built all around that. So 7-Eleven's reward application is a good example. So it's an app where you get rewards if you shop around there. And you can just draw some insights based on what kind of games you're playing and develop points which you can then spend in store. The engagement rate is very high for those apps because there's the additional motivation of getting all the points you can. So by using augmented reality, they actually stay in the app for longer and then continue to be engaged. Usually, when you're tracking your stats, you don't track it on clicks or any other ways. You principally track it on dwell time. And if your dwell time is above 3 minutes, then you've got a very engaged experience, which people are loving. And that is one of the key stats you should be using for tracking engagement rates for whatever augmented reality experiences you're creating. E-commerce is the main moneymaker. So this showing to the left is an example of a shoe brand. Shoe brands are actually very common at the moment, but we're also going to be seeing more clothing items appear along the line as well. The actual amalgamation is going to be something like augmented reality. We only buy a virtual component of a clothing item via an NFT. I'm sure that's out there somewhere, but we'll see if it does. But yeah, it's honestly making a lot of money at the moment. And I just kind of like want to briefly pause because it's not directly related to augmented reality, but digital twins is a growing area. So a digital twin is effectively you're creating a digital replica of a real life location or building. So for example, if you want to get a little scan of a brewery, you could do a brewery tour, which is exactly what Brewdog did. Or you can have a replica of a factory. So you can like track and predict what needs maintenance at the same time. This blends with augmented reality because you can see a digital replica of a building and you can see all the stats flow through. So you have a better understanding of the supply chain and what's needed and when. And it's becoming a bigger area. It's all part of Industry 4.0. And there was a company that went public last week on the NASDAQ and it's a digital twin unicorn effectively. So, and it's fully specializes in making digital twins. So it's a growing area. It's one to keep an eye on. And you're going to be seeing more and more companies implement digital twins as part of their portfolio, as part of their wider services when it comes to immersive technologies. So Microsoft is doing a little bit, for example, and you've got providers, Matterport I mentioned, who's just doing solo. Then you've got augmented reality and packaging, which is linked to the app variation, where you try just creating very engaging experiences on the packaging that you're sending over, because it's a completely owned channel. Your packaging on your product is a very good way of developing a relationship with your customers. So, and there's also a good way for partnerships too, as you can see with Pizza Hut and Pac-Man. And the nice thing also is you can see how successful it is because, again, you can track the stats. You can see how many people are scanning it and how long they stay playing the games. Very good way of tracking like a marketing initiative and also seeing how successful it is as well, which is why AI packaging is a bigger deal. And I recommend that if you are to look into making AI experiences and you want to be contributing to a very wide ecosystem, packaging and retail are the ones which are growing very quickly at the moment and ones where you could surf the wave if you wish. And then we got to Aeon Gaming. Again, Jai did very well, so I'm not going to touch on this too much. But yeah, Pokemon Go was a big deal. And Ingress, the predecessor, was also a really big deal as well. So the real question is, how are you going to use the technology to service these experiences? And the principal issue I have is the control method is not quite there yet. Holding a mobile phone and just waving it around just feels a bit finicky at the moment. It's not organic, and it just feels it's not as easy just holding in your phone and just tapping a few buttons. Waving around just doesn't feel quite right, and it's full of friction, which is why I do think that augmented reality glasses, once they reach a certain technological level, will be a bigger deal, purely because it's a lot easier to use. They're on your face and they may be receptive to either an input in your hands or your hands themselves, which is a lot easier to handle. And that once the input method is done properly, then it will be a lot easier to build AR games. And I feel that, yes, Pokemon Go is popular, but I feel there'll be more popular games using the technology once the input method is sorted. Now we're going to touch on virtual reality. And collaboration is going to be one, the big area. Educators in VR, if you're curious to learn more, that's a very good way to explore a different area. And not everyone is going to collaborate in virtual reality. It's a very niche use. So the picture to my left is me talking to the lead in Vive, because they were doing Vive Sync, a way for you to collaborate within HTC Vive and their systems to basically work on CAD models or to have meetings. And when I did it, and when I talked to other people about it, I'm not going to be on it all the time. I'm in the mood at the moment where I just want to see people face to face. And if I were to be virtually dialing in, it's just so much easier to click on the few buttons and do it as we are doing, you and me right now, face to face with a little webcam. Much easier. And I'm not going to be strapping on a VR headset for a meeting all the time, because it's just too many frictional steps. So the real question I'm asking myself is, if I want to do it, then why would I need to do it? And the answer is going to be because you're presenting models with engineers, and it's much easier to collaborate around a model if you can sit around the same table, seeing the model by yourselves, and then suggesting edits. That's a use case which you can't really do in real life. Therefore, virtual reality has a place in it. So it's solving a pain point which just real life can't really solve, and which is why VR can work for collaboration. So the way I see it with VR collabs, it's going to be principally be used by engineers or product designers, because, and also if you're being virtual as well, because that's a good use case for it. For VR and training, this is slightly different, and there's a reason why there's a lot of people putting money into this, is because it's proven to work and it's cost effective. Why take someone's time to travel them off-site to pay for training over a day on a very expensive location, when you could run a VR software on site in the building, training them to do those items? It's just a lot easier. And it's a lot cheaper as well, because you can just loop it over and over and over again. And also stats have shown that if you do VR training, you're more likely to remember the learning afterwards. So there's no losslessness when it comes to this new skills you learn. So this is precisely why there's so many companies doubling down into this and providing either the hardware regarding it, with hardware headsets like the Oculus, Magic Leap, Microsoft's HoloLens, Oculus, and also the software as well, because you get a lot of providers like MakeReal or Immerse who are creating these learning scenarios, both hard skills like engineering and also soft skills such as personnel management. Body Swaps is another company as well, actually. And you get to just learn it over and over and over again immersively. And the rates of pace of improvement is so fast as well, where when they introduced hand tracking for certain headsets, they just jumped on it immediately. It's already made some training scenarios. It's really quick. And it's, again, as PDWC is actually noted in their report, it is going to be one of the fastest growing areas in virtual reality. And then we go to gaming. And this is the gateway, as it were, to where a lot of people see it, because of the social aspect and be able to play some really cool games like Half-Life Alyx. But I just want to note that, like, it is getting cheaper and cheaper to get these VR headsets for people to try these games. And it's important because it's a very price elastic market. Market analysis has shown that no other statistic is more important than price when it comes to VR headset. It could be like a really low powered, awful device, but if it's cheap, a lot of people are going to buy it. So that's the framework we're working on when it comes to virtual reality. And I think Facebook knows this as well, which is why they keep lowering the price as much as they can. And we're going to see headsets which are gradually going to get cheaper and cheaper and better. And the surge that happens every single time is astronomical. So when the OG Oculus Quest came out in 2019, 90% of the people who bought it were new to VR. We don't know the stats quite yet for Oculus Quest 2, but it's looking to be somewhat similar because of that incremental deduction in price. So bear in mind, we've got a lot of people playing video games at the moment, and it's all contingent to the price of headsets rather than the quality. And now we're going to get on to the fun topic of the metaverse. So I'm just going to do a preamble because no one can agree on what the metaverse is. It's become a meme in the community because people doss out the word, say, oh, we're creating a metaverse, we're doing a metaverse thing, but no one knows what they're talking about. I guarantee you. So the general definition of a metaverse is that it is a interconnected virtual arena where people can converse, socialize, e-commerce, chat, and all that good stuff. It is a form of social media, but not quite. It goes far beyond that because there's also its own economy as well of sorts. And the other element is interoperability, where within the metaverse, a lot of different systems can communicate with one another. Fortnite has become the closest to have interoperability because you can wear a Marvel costume within a DC setting, which you can never do in any other scenario. And it's a very unique scenario as well, but that's the kind of thing you can expect from a metaverse of the future. And as everyone knows, Facebook is trying to double down on this as well because they want to be a metaverse company. Privately, I think it's because they see it as a new market opportunity. They want to own the space because principally they are an advertising company. So they want to own that virtual space so they can run that ads / diversify the portfolio into other products as well. Virtual reality is a component of it, but we'll also have to bear in mind the use of people's data as well. And it's slightly different for each and every company. So Facebook is still a bit nebulous, but they want to build the infrastructure around that. Epic also wants to create these metaverse principles within Fortnite, but also they created the engine behind it. So they're trying to build the foundation stone. And Roblox wants to build a culture of people just creating their own experiences as well. And it's that creator economy, which I as someone who's been following creators all my life, is the creator economy, which I really like as well. I'm sorry I sound vague at this point, but that's because honestly, it's a bit like seeing a TV show has been commissioned to release in 10 years' time and speculating what it's going to be about. That's kind of how it feels like with the metaverse at the moment, and everyone's kind of exploring what they're doing with that at the moment. So one to watch. Let's see what the companies do with it. Anyone making direct assertions of what the future is going to be is probably misleading to some extent. That's everything. I have to thank everyone for listening. If you scan the QR code, you go directly to my website and also the home of the content, which is the Immersive Wire newsletter, where I kind of track what all the companies are doing and I do analysis as well. So on Wednesdays is a kind of a news roundup, and similar to all the companies I mentioned in this presentation, there's a lot more companies doing cool things as well, and I want to keep track of it, and it'll be really cool to have you part of the journey as well. And on Sundays I do a longer read as well if you just want a nice chunky article to bite down into as well. So have a scan. Hopefully I'll see you there as well. And yeah, I open myself to any questions because I think you guys have me for another 7 minutes, so hit me up.
Oh, that was great. Thanks, Tom. That was great. A really great comprehensive overview of the industry. And yeah, just to follow up your request for questions. So if anyone wants to has a question for Tom, yeah, please put it into the add it to the comments section, and we'll put that to Tom. So yeah, I guess one question I had, Tom, was you mentioned about the with the VR industry, how it was quite price elastic, and how they kind of, I guess, the low quality headsets seem to sell well. So a few years ago we had a number of I guess what you call the kind of mobile VR headsets and things like Daydream and Oculus Go and Samsung VR, but they seem to kind of fade away and die. What in your opinion, what do you think the reasons was for that kind of
as in for why cardboard and Samsung didn't really work as well?
That whole kind of sector of VR, that whole kind of what I guess you call maybe sub £200 kind of sector.
Yeah, that's a really good question. Actually, before I answer that, I'm so sorry for not hiding the hide message. I was
That's
actually doing
okay.
the presentation and I was like, I just missed all the messages. I was like, whoops, sorry about that.
No problem.
But on the Samsung answer, I think it's literally a content problem, because there were a lot of companies who were investing a lot of content into the ecosystem and it made some really cool experiences. But when they saw the stats afterwards of how many people actually engaged with it, they weren't quite sure what they were getting out of it. They're like, okay, cool. So we had like 1,000 people who tried out this experience. And I'm sure it's super impactful, those 1,000 people. But why didn't we spend 100 quid on Google ads? And then we could like reach more people in that way. So I think a lot of it was like that, because it was used primarily as like a marketing / documentary device for a lot of Samsung things. With some games, and the games were really cool indeed, but on the face of it, they didn't do really well as the games that capitalize on the whale economics, such as Pokemon Go. So I think it was a content issue where the content wasn't quite there, and once the content dried up, it became harder to justify developing VR hardware. Now, I think what Facebook did is they learned the lesson, and they knew that they just had to keep funneling in money to create a self-sustaining ecosystem. I believe the amount of money they said was around 10 million, where the ecosystem needs to be like churning 10 million for it to be self-sustaining, and then people can organically create content in there. Well, on the precipice of that, we're not quite there yet, but when it does happen, then we all should be avoiding shall we say, a Samsung-like scenario. I'm going to pick up on what Anissa's saying, is that she's sad that mobile VR is pretty much dead. And I agree. It was really cool. I love the little experience that came on mobile VR. I remember seeing a great experience actually turned me towards vegan milk, because it was made by animal cruelty. And you saw the life and death of a cow. And seeing in 360, while simple, worked so well. And so it did have its own little impact as well. And yes, there was a hardware specs issue as well, because the power wasn't quite there yet. But I can argue that you don't need a super powerful device to run some good experiences. If you're super savvy with the way you create your virtual world, you can deliver some impactful experiences with slightly less computing power.
Yeah, I can echo what Anessa said. I was a big fan of Google Daydream when it came out. I mean, both as a consumer device, as a great piece of kit to run experiences on, and as a developer, I had a great kind of development environment, very easy to develop for real great integration with Unity. So I was kind of surprised and a bit sad when Google decided to discontinue it, but I guess the sales just weren't there.
Yeah, and it comes down to sales. You need to justify it in some way. I'm sure Facebook is justifying their sales of their VR headsets. But the thing is, and I think not everyone knows this, they're not public at all with the number of Oculus headsets they sell. Not at all. They never publicly said how many they're making and how many they've sold. I think the closest we've come to a firm number is around 4 million. And that's the round number of the VR headsets they're recalling because of the foam issue, which you may have seen recently. That's the only hard number we've got, which is quite just ironic because it was due to an issue rather than the actual sell figure.
Great. I think we've got about a couple of minutes left. So just one quick question is, so in terms of the industry, I guess the XR industry, what you say was the most confusing aspect of the industry for you?
I really don't understand why some companies want to create a directory. So to give you some background, it's become more common for websites to list suppliers and VR developers and project managers on a website. You pay to be listed on that website. And then the business opportunity is a client might be browsing their website and might select you to work on their project. So it's a directory to help connect people. I never understood it because whenever they create these directories, you just have a lot of XR people who sign up to be part of it, but there's almost no marketing to bring clients to actually browse it to begin with. So you end up having effectively a party of people who want to like meet up in one big cramped room, but they don't meet up with anyone because no one else turns up. So there's one part of the XR industry I just never understood. And then another part which I just No, I think that's it. I think that's the principal launch. I'll just like I say at this point. Yeah. Is there like a part of XR yourself, Hamal, which you might be confused by, or you're just raising that question mark too?
Confused by. Well, I guess being quite kind of quite geeky, quite a developer. And as I think I mentioned earlier about how VR has been around for decades and decades, but not quite taken off, not gone mass market. And originally understood because just there was the performance and the price point just wasn't there. But now we're getting a performance, we're getting a price point, but it's still not gone mass market. So yeah, I find that kind of a bit surprising, you know, because like I keep kind of wanting it to go big so we can all develop lots of cool projects for these things, but it hasn't. And part of my possible explanation, I think AR is a lot more accessible, so I think maybe that's more attractive to a lot of people. That's my theory.
It's a good theory, and I completely agree with you because AR is much more accessible, which is why there's a lot more people using it. And this is why we have people like Jai who's using these Google APIs to create these experiences, because it is. And virtual reality is still just a lot more expensive, but we're getting there. It's an iterative process.
Yep. So, Tom, thanks once again for a great talk, a great overview, and and as Ines said, I'll echo myself. It's great having been a keen reader of your newsletters. It's great to finally put a face to the name. So, great. Okay, thanks, Tom.
Thank you so much. Happy to have joined.
Very inspiring, both talks, really. It gives the spark to the people to create something really cool.
Yeah, definitely. No, it's great having within something we might consider like XR quite a narrow space, but we can see just within those two talks, just the range of topics covered within that has been really inspiring. Right, so we're just gonna go on to our next speaker, Julian, who's going to give us an overview of AR VR on Android in 2021. So great to meet you, Julian. And,
hello.
Hi. And just one fact I've been given about you is that you've visited over 30 countries so far. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Well,
before COVID times.
Pre-COVID times, I was going to say, I assume that. So what would you say was the most interesting place you've visited?
For me, the top three I remember for like my best travels was Iceland, Jordan, and Japan.
Wow, great. Very good. So great to have you with us, Julian. So I'll let you take it away.
Right, so I'm gonna share my screen. All right, so which should be good now. So welcome everyone. Good evening, and I'm very pleased to be here tonight. So my name is Julian Salvi. I'm a lead Android engineer at Aircall in Paris, and I'm also an Android GD. And tonight I'm gonna talk a bit about the history of AR and VR on Android and what's the status of this technology in 2021. So first I'm gonna talk about virtual reality on Android. So I used long ago to build VR apps on Android with cardboards, Daydream and some other stuff long time ago, but it was like in 2016. So in years of Android, for me it's like long ago. I will start with a fun quote by John Carmack about virtual reality. It's a moral imperative that we must create this. So virtual reality has been there for a long time in the industry. It's kind of here with some waves. It has some tops, some lows. When cardboard was there, it was at the top of the wave. Building immersive application, it's an imperative as well when you are building VR application. So you have to be very immersive, and your user must feel the atmosphere of your game or your experience. So yeah, the storytelling of your experience is very important in VR. With VR, also you can go beyond reality. So why not building some crazy experience like a DJ battle in space around a planet? So be creative and go beyond what you know. You can also bring your existing app at a new level. For example, if you are a video application, you can bring your actual experience at a virtual theater to watch a movie together, but in virtual reality. One other thing, it's be social. So share your experience with other people. With VR, you can like share the closest experience with far away people. So social is very important for VR as well. So I was talking about the history of VR on Android, like VR tools from Google. So it started back in 2014 with Cardboard 101. 100 when the first SDK was released. So for 2 years, we had a lot of fun building some small application using VR. Not so many resources back in the days. And then at the I/O 2016, Daydream was released to have a better experience with high quality phones, as well as the new Google VR Sdk that brings Daydream and Cardboard. They released at that time in 2016 a lot of resources about designs, about building applications. Came up also some 3D assets bank where you can take some assets if you don't have the resource to build your own 3D assets. And then, as I said, it's a wave, so it's starting to load down 2 years later at the lowest of the wave. So starting the end of 2018, beginning of 2019, the Google VR SDK was archived. But at the late 2019, they released a Cardboard SDK, so only dedicated to build like classic VR experience. So no Daydream on this SDK. Purely focused on Android and Unity for cross-platform experience. And it's still maintained, so that the only here SDK and tool from Google that it's still alive to build VR experience from Google, because in 2020 Daydream was discontinued by Google. So if you want to go for VR SDK, you can go with the Cardboard SDK by Google, and we are at the 1.7.0. It's still maintained the code. There are some commits every day, so you can go for it. So I was talking a lot about some SDK with VR. As I said, the Google VR SDK was quite nice back in the days. It was easy to prototype and do some integration into existing Android apps. We also had widgets for playing 360 videos and some other stuff. So it was quite nice. You add a native integration, so you can use plain Java or Kotlin to develop that thing, or go deeper and use C++ to be like in the real core of the system. But it's no longer supported since November 2019. So yeah, so bye bye Google VR SDK. But as I said, it was quite nice to use it, and you can still use it. It's just archived, but no longer supported. It was like very easy to add some VR video views or VR panorama views for watching 360 images. It was the smallest setup to enjoy some 360 content in your application. But as I said, it's deprecated. And it looked like this. So you were able to access your video in a view, or you can switch to the VR mode with the cardboard icon. And so yeah, you also you were able to build some homemade VR sample. For example, bringing Exoplayer to VR and play like a tiny theater in your with cardboard, all made with OpenGL. So lots of lines of code. It was quite painful. But anyway, very fun to do. Then, so I was talking about cardboard, but you can also develop some VR application using the headset from Samsung. So what about the Gear Vr Sdk? Though the Gear VR headset were quite popular back in the days, very optimized for Samsung devices. But again, it's no longer supported since September 2020. So bye-bye the Gear Vr Sdk. So what remains? The cardboard SDK, native SDK. So it's C++ only for Android, iOS, or Unity. If you go for this SDK purely on Android or iOS, it's going to be hard, like to prototype like a simple application, like going through Vulkan or OpenGL. You will spend a lot of time achieving a tiny sample. So Google also did a wrapper around the cardboard SDK that works on Unity. So better go for Unity to build very nice and powerful experience in VR. So this, as I said, it's actively supported and maintained. So if you want to go for that SDK, you can go for it. It's still maintained, and you won't have any issues. And also, what remains is the VR. Maybe you can make VR experience with Oculus Quest and Oculus Go. So this is standalone headset. So, and this is high quality standalone headset. So made by Oculus. It's a native SDK for Android. So you will go with the NDK and C++ stuff if you are building directly with Android. But there is a very nice support of Unity and Unreal if you want to go with the Oculus Quest and the Oculus Go applications. So yeah, what remains for VR, it's just like you can build application for Oculus Quest on Oculus Go. That's the most popular now in our days. You can still do some prototypes for cardboard. Yeah, some samples, some show off with cardboard. No real future for cardboard, but it's still there and still enjoyable to show some tiny experience with that. But if you want like to target the mass market, well, it's not a mass market for VR, but the tiny market will be there. You can go for Oculus Quest or the Oculus Go. So, but where we are for virtual reality on Android. So now it's not so great, but now let's see like a brighter future of what augmented reality is on Android. So I'll start this section again by a small number, like a big number here. So over 600 million active users are using AR on mobile devices. So that's a pretty big number here. And so the AR market is booming. There is a lot of application. And you can build for a lot of domains here. So you can build, for example, AR applications for housing or real estate. For example, if you want to show a chair or sofa in your living room and see what it looks like in your real environment, you can also build AR apps for gaming and leisure. So themes Pokemon Go or something like that. So there are some very nice game experience. So go ahead and unleash your creative knowledge and build awesome gaming experience. It's also a good point to show some AR stuff for science, education, or industry. So in terms of learning, AR could be a great tool to show, for example, the solar system or a skeleton to show the name of the bones and so on. So so many topics that can be chosen for science, education, or industry. Or you can enjoy sports, like have a lot of statistics during a game. Can be football, can be rugby, or so on. So a lot of statistics and the way you can enjoy sport can be different with AR. So you can go for that, or you can enhance your daily life, like with the Google Maps application. Now you can show the itinerary to a given point. The itinerary will be there in AR, so it will show the direction. So going forward, if you need to go left, you will have like a tiny arrow in front of you that will show you the direction. So that's quite nice here. So what are the tools here for building AR apps on Android? Obviously, we can go for AR Core, that the library made by Google. But there are a lot of tools before AR Core. So you can go for Vuforia, for example, Wikitude, or the AR Toolkit, which is nice because it's an open source library. So you can have a look and check which SDK fit your needs. So a bit of history of AR from Google. So Google introduced augmented reality after VR. So back in 2017, Google introduced the first version of AR Core. And then a year later, AR Core, the stable version, came up at the beginning of 2018. And then some months later, Synform was released. So Synform was the SDK framework that wrapped AR Core to build to give us Android developer like a per version of AR Core, not going through C++ and a lot of hard stuff. So we just need like to add some lines of code and render or some other things, and you can make some great AR experience on Android. So afterwards, so AR Core is still maintained. It 1.25, and it has a couple of announcements at the latest Google I/O, so I will come back on that later. But beginning of 2020, Synform was kind of discontinued, so Synform became open source. But thanks to the Android community, someone forked this repository. Is doing a lot of improvements. So if you want to have an up-to-date version, check the Synform version from Tomagoris. I will send the link later. But he's doing some great job maintaining the Synform SDK. So I will talk now a bit about ARCore and Synform. So the two libraries made by Google. It has many features like motion tracking, light estimation, augmented faces, and so on. It's quite easy to prototype with Synform. And you can bring also the UI you built for your classic Android application to AR. So if you want to quickly prototype something with basic shapes or with your Android UI, you can go for Synforms. And ARCore is supported now on more than 250 devices. So you can target a lot of users with ARCore. If you go for ARCore, so your minimum SDK must target the SDK 24 if your application is only AR focused. Otherwise, if it's just a part of your application, you can target the API 14. It requires also OpenGL ES 3.0, and you must have the Google Play services for AR installed on your device, unless you won't be able to use some ARCore feature. And as well, if you want to use the Synform SDK, you have to have a requirement of Java 8 for building your applications. So now I'll cover all the main features of ARCore, starting with the augmented images. So you can bring images to life with ARCore. So each augmented images database can store up to 1,000 reference images. So there is a command line to build this database with the ARCore IMG. So you have your reference image and on the cloud or on your application when the image you are scanning. So it will be displayed. So on the image, you will see the augmented one that is stored on your device or on the cloud to have a 3D representation of what you are scanning. Then there is also the augmented faces. So it is for very for fun, building filters like on the Messenger or Snapchat or Instagram stuff. So it uses some faces recognition, and you can map some part of your face, like the nose, the forehead, I think the mouth as well, if I remember. So just there for fun. So if you want to build filters, you can do it very easily with augmented faces. And then one of the greatest feature of ARCore here is the cloud anchors. So it's there to create collaborative AR experiences. So to bring the AR fun with multiple users, that the way that you can be social. For example, if you want to play a ping pong experience or a beer pong experience with someone. So each anchor data is stored on the cloud, can be on Firebase or your own solution, and the data of the 3D asset will be shared with the users that are using the application. So you will have the representation of the same 3D object in your different applications. So you can interact with the shared object. So as you were interacting in the real life with a ball with someone, for example. Then we have also the depth API. That was introduced quite recently. It's an accurate mapping of your environment. So it maps the depth of your scene. So for example, if there is a box in front of you, if you want to place your 3D asset behind this box, if you enable the depth API, so you can control the occlusion of this object. So your object can be hidden behind the box. For example, if you place the object behind the box. So you will have like a very accurate mapping of your scene. With the depth, you can also have like more realistic experience of your 3D experience. At the latest Google I/O, the raw depth API was introduced, like to have also a better precision about the depth mapping of your scene. Also, there is the lighting estimation. So it provides detailed information about the lighting in your scene, and that's very powerful and very impressive. So you can enable immersive and realistic experience with that feature of ARCore. So there is two kinds of light estimation. You can enable the environmental HDR and the ambient synthesis. So this feature will compute and estimate the lighting of the scene, all with image processing. It's quite impressive. It will render some shadows and some lighting in your 3D object in your scene. That's a very impressive work with ARCore. And then you have the recurring Playback API that was introduced at the latest Google I/O. So you can create experiences that can be viewed anywhere at any time. So you are recording the scene you want to map for your AR experience, and then you can go back later to that scene. So you are recording an MP4 with some AR metadata in there, and you can use that video for developing for your application. For example, if you need like to go to a mall or something like that that is far away from your daily work, so you can map the place, and then you use that video to work like not offline but off place. You can place your 3D assets and do some other stuff like you were like in the real world and in this place at that moment. So that's a very nice improvement here. You can like even share the recorded experience with the AR stuff to Mac, PC, Android, or iOS. So I was talking about Scene4 that was discontinued by Google in 2020. So yeah, it was no more maintained, and here is the link. The Scene4 on Android SDK that is maintained by Tom Agoris. So it uses the latest version of Filament to render GLTF assets. And it's all maintained every day. If you have issues with that, you can open issues, and it's very reactive. So feel free to ping in and go check the repo if you want to play with Scene4. So with Scene4, you can like play with some basic shapes. You can add to your scene some cube, cylinder, and sphere. There's a set of definitions, so you must provide a center or radius, depends of the shape you want to add to your scene. Each shape accepts a material. So what's a material? So it can be a texture, a color, or a transparent color. So you can also render some transparency with AR core. And to inject that color or that texture to your shape, you will use the material factory to attach the new material. I was talking also about rendering Android UI, so you can also bring your classic Android UI components in AR with SceneForm. So we were using XML layouts. So you can fix these layouts. For example, what you see, it's just a card with some text, the checkbox. You can add also some image view in there. All the interaction will be working as usual. So if you have a clicks listener, a listener on your checkbox, so it will work on AR. So that's a pretty good thing that you can bring very easily some Android UI to AR. And it's nice to bring Android UI to AR, but you can also as well bring some 3D assets. If you want to bring some complex 3D assets, you can go for GLTF assets. That recommended the recommended kind of assets for building AR experience with Android. This will be loaded by Filament on the backend. So you can use also Object Animator to animate your 3D assets. And as I said, SceneForm is using Filament to load GLTF object behind the hood. So if you want to get more resources or want to play with SceneForms and AirCore, you can check the code labs made by Google and also the documentation. There's some nice design guidelines for AR as well on the Google documentation. I also linked my repository where I made a little sample using SceneForms, so to display and build a ship with AirCore and SceneForms, show the capabilities of that libraries. So that's it for the history and what we are in AR on Android. So now, last part, I want to go further. It's hard to build applications with Android, playing purely with the SDK of AirCore and SceneForm can take a long time to be complex experience. But now I want to show you the power of Unity. How it's a great game engine to build AR and VR experience for Android. So Unity is a game engine that is available on Windows, Mac, or Linux. So it's there to build 3D, 2D games or MR experience, AR, VR, and so on. It's very good for fast prototyping. You can easily write script to animate your scenes or to do some complex scripting. It has a great interoperability with native platforms, so you can build your apps for Android, for iOS, or for desktops, or for consoles like PlayStation or Xbox. It also supports most of the 3D and 2D assets, so you won't have any issue to find some assets in some 3D banks and add your asset you want or build your own if you want. So when you want to build some AR application with Unity, you might want to go for AR foundations. So why? Because AR foundation it's like an abstraction of all the kits that are available for building AR experience. For example, it's a wrapper for AR Core, AR Kit, HoloLens, and Magic Leap. So you'll develop once and for all these platforms. And also you can take advantage of all the Unity features for developing AR applications. And it's also future-proof AR apps. So you are building, for example, an application for AR Core, but you want to use the light estimations. It's only available for AR Core and AR Kit, but it might come in the future for Magic Leap and HoloLens. So you can just enable the feature for AR Core and AR Kit. So you are developing this this feature, and once it will be available for Magic Leap, you won't have to like redevelop the same thing for Magic Leap or HoloLens. You will just need like to enable the feature for Magic Leap, and you'll be done. So yeah, it's just like develop once. It will be supported for like the platform you want to target. If you want like to have a great start about AR Foundation with Unity, you can have a look at the course in Ray Wenderlich about the AR Foundation tutorial with Unity. It's a great start building AR application with AR Foundations. And then with Unity, you can also bring the new Google Map SDK and have fun with all the data from Google Map. So Google released an SDK for Unity, so you can have access to high-quality geodata from the Google Maps database. It renders geographic features such as buildings, roads, landscapes, and so on, monuments, water area, for example. So as you can see on the screen, so this is like a representation of Paris with the Google Map SDK for Unity. So you can have a lot of fun playing with that. And one of the great thing is there is a support for Android and iOS, but only on this platform. So you can like build this thing for desktops, only for mobile. So as I said, there is some great feature for the Google Map SDK. So you can render world like this to represent the world network. So you can identify road intersection and do some crazy experience with traffic simulation or something like that. So you can build a lot of application with the Google Map SDK for Unity. And it also supports terrain elevation to add fully studyable 3D terrain for better immersions.
Hi, Julian. Sorry to interrupt. Just to let you know, we've got about five minutes remaining, I'm afraid.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll be on time.
Great, thank you.
And yeah, for example, here you have the style world intersection, and then you have some rendering about terrain elevation that you can fully style on your own. So this is a sample of the Google Map SDK in action. So this is the building from Singapore that is rendered in your living room. So a pretty fun thing to work with. One last thing, Unity as a library, so you can add content directly to your Android apps or iOS app. It's available since Unity 2019. It's a proper integration of the library, because back in the days it was like very hacky to add some Unity content to your app. But it has some restrictions, so it's full screen rendering only. You can only use one instance of the Unity runtime, and you maybe need to adapt some of your plugin to work with the Unity as a library. And if you add some Unity games to your app, it might increase drastically your app size, so you might think of the assets delivery, so the user won't download a huge applications on the store. And so that's it for Aeon VR on Android. So the future is much more brighter on the AR side. We'll see what happens next on VR, but yeah, that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed the talk, and thank you very much.
That was great, Julian. It was a great overview of, I guess, just how to get started with XR development on Android, and I also really enjoyed hearing about the like the history of VR and AR on the platform. So great.
Thanks.
So yeah. So thanks. So thanks, Julian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julian.
Okay. So okay. So I guess we're kind of nearly out of time now. So finally, just want to wrap up. So I hope you all enjoyed the great talks we had tonight. I think we covered quite a diverse range of topics within the XR industry in those couple of hours. So yeah, so a big thank you to all our speakers, to Jai, to Tom and Julian. Also, yep, thank you to Federico for helping to host tonight.
Thanks, Emal.
Great. Yeah, good having you on board, Federico. And also, yeah, just shout out to Pranav, who's not here tonight, but he put a huge amount of behind the scenes effort in organizing tonight's event. So tomorrow evening, there's some more talks for you to enjoy as part of IO Extended. And I think it's on topics including mobile development and user experience. So great, that's it. Okay, thank you and good night.
Bye bye.